Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest I'm honored to have, Nasir Qadree. Nasir is the founder and managing partner of Zeal Capital Partners. Welcome to the show, Nasir.
Oda, it's great to finally connect with you and be on the show. I know we've been trying to do this for at least the past 6, 7 months, so I am honored because I know I gotta yeah, well, it's all previous interviews, and just I'm really flattered that you selected me to join your show.
Thank you. You're so kind, Nazir. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on. Um, Before we go into your personal journey, if you could just give the audiences here a brief general overview of who is Zeal, please.
Yeah. So Zeal, we're headquartered, proud to be headquartered in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. That's right. We coin ourselves as an inclusive investment franchise that's focused on partnering with exceptional, diverse management teams that are rethinking the building blocks of wealth, from education to employment pathways to financial wellness. And we're proud to begin, investing in healthcare, which we're coining health equity entrepreneurs, which we believe is pivotal to turbocharging economic mobility across the country. We're about 54 million in assets under management. We were founded back in ideated in 2019 and went into market 2020. And we were just so excited to be able to partner with exceptional founders who are thinking about systems change across the post-secondary workforce, financial services, and healthcare categories. And of course, those who put us in business and our strategic and mission aligned investors, are limited partners who believed in us so early. And so we're just grateful to be in a great position to be a new investment franchise that's unbundling, honestly, how we think about the private markets.
That's great. I can't wait to get into it. I understand your first fund was oversubscribed, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our goal was 20 million, and we found ourselves on a momentum was amazing, especially of course in the heart, starting pre-COVID. And then you think about the racial reckoning, and being home, raising a new fund, being a diverse manager, having a bit of a unique background versus your traditional manager who's going out for the first time, being a solo general partner out of the gate. So there was a lot of flags, if you want to call them, that could have slowed us down. But when you build the right team, that's core team and advisory board, you have strong conviction, and that you have the resources to prove, to show to your partners that you're differentiated, and that's what we did.
I love that. Nazir, are you originally from this area?
I'm not. DC has been great to us. I've been here for going on 8 years now. Been highly involved all across the community, from particularly around education, work at the K-12 level. But my story starts in Atlanta, Georgia, Southwest Atlanta, Georgia to be exact. And it is much like DC, an amazing city. Obviously, we view Atlanta as the home of the civil rights movement. Some of the most iconic civil rights leaders, like Martin Luther King Jr. is from Atlanta. But I've been fortunate to go through several nonprofits that have really shaped my thinking around what education, the quality education should look like, for myself, and particularly those that look like you and I, thinking about our career, what diverse career opportunities, as you think about economic mobility, the importance of service as well, to whom much is given, much is required. So that was, there are so many foundational resources, from people to organizations and to moments, right? We thrive and we grow through our moments. And so, beginning in Atlanta, and then working my way up the East Coast corridor. Kind of, I guess I just never looked back. But it's like really home, always repping. I love Atlanta, but I also, again, love DC because of the local, everything that's happening here outside of being a federal hotbed.
Sure. How was it growing up in the ATL?
It was an interesting experience. I am a son of a an amazing mother. I have, my grandmother also took me in. I lived with her. And I grew up in this blended family where, love was everywhere. But like a lot of families, a lot of fickleness, and how I navigate that and still continue to stay laser focused on studies and friendships and sports. It was a lot, like most kids growing up. But like I said, like it's a childhood that I wouldn't replace. It is absolutely what has shaped me to who I am today. I think one of my favorite books, and our next, speaking of the DMV, one of my closest friends will become the next governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. In one of his first books, he talked about the other Wes Moore, and he said, we're not a product of our environment, especially the older we get, we're a product of our own expectations. And so that shift between this mindset of being a product of my, not being a product of my environment, but being a product of my own expectations, understanding what those expectations are, was became clearer and clearer. But that was because I had an amazing support system from mentors to family members as well.
Nasir, do you remember growing up, what were you into? I can't help to notice, of course, behind you and all the records. And I know now Atlanta is sort of the hotbed of music. It's been like that for several years. Once upon a time here in America, it was sort of more New York City, it's still LA, but now the shift and energy has focused down south in Atlanta.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I've grown up around music all my life, particularly jazz and soul and disco and house music. You see Donald Byrd behind me, and Aretha Franklin and Teddy Pendergrass and James Brown and Minnie Riperton and newer artists like John Baptiste behind me. And so that's really been, what has honestly molded me to understand history and because I'm also a bit of a history buff, and there's correlation between lyrics and music, good music that is, and what was going on around that time. And of course, growing up in Atlanta, the hip hop, from Outkast to So Def and LaFace Records that I would argue drove Atlanta back when I was growing up. And you fast forward today, you're right, it has evolved as a music hotbed. So, but early on, it was important that I wasn't one dimensional. We my friends and I, and even my partner, my better three quarters, we talk a lot about identity and who we are. And we know, and as we share with our friends, that we should not be one dimensional. And so when I think about this diversity of interest for me, I never want to be known as a venture capitalist, solely as a venture capitalist, but also as someone who is an artist of music, in terms of the craft of DJing, on a Saturday. The interest of running, I have this interest to run a full marathon in every single state, including Washington, D.C., to raise $1 million for first generation college students. That's an interest. I have a close relationship and deeply rooted personally, the focus around reentry citizens, and how do we build support systems around reentry citizens. And so, yeah, I think it's all about making time for those things, which is probably one of the biggest challenges and things that I get pushed back. And even like mentees try to, ask me often, like, how do you manage your time? Because outside looking in, I can see how that can be viewed as a lot, but it keeps me sane. It's therapeutic music, that is, and running and basketball, playing pickup hoops. And so to have that balance, I think, is what continues to, allow me to have the appetite and drive to run a venture capital firm.
After high school in Atlanta, where did you end up going to college?
Well, it's funny. I wasn't a typical freshman. In fact, I was a bit of an older freshman. I went to a boarding school. I did what you call a postgraduate year at a school called Maine Central Institute. Um, it was strict. It was in Pittsfield, Maine, which was about an hour north of Bangor and about 45 minutes north of Portland, Maine. And that's where I learned to be even more disciplined. And I think that has been a key theme for me throughout my career and even personal life. So yeah, I decided to go to Maine Central Institute, and then as I was thinking about college, I knew early on, just being a product of HBCUs around my family, that it's historically Black college universities. It was very much important that I explored that experience. And so, there were some schools in my own backyard that were a bit too close to home, but I was very, very fortunate to become a Hamptonian at Hampton University. And so that's that to me, and I still say this today, the best consecutive 4 years experience in my life so far. Just how college shaped my thinking, especially being around over 6,000 undergraduate and graduate African Americans, predominantly African Americans, who all had a common goal of graduating within their respective degrees and getting a high quality job and going off and doing some great things. So so Hampton University, so go Pirates.
What did you major?
It's funny. I majored in marketing.
Okay.
You look at my career, you would think I might have majored in finance or accounting and did the whole traditional route. And I'm thrilled that you asked me that question, because I do think it's important for young people who are watching this clip that for what you major is not ultimately what will continue to be your the crux of your career. I did have an interest in marketing. Honestly, haven't done anything that has to do with marketing, probably marketing myself and my company, but I never worked at Procter and Gamble or Johnson and Johnson, who has great marketing programs, and they were feeders from Hampton. But I majored in marketing. I was president of the AMA. I was highly involved around campus, but knew probably, I would say, end of junior year, after a stint in commercial real estate, because that was also an interest, that I wanted to really get more of a broad experience across the financial services industry. And I think the idea was no better place to start your career than New York City.
And then you go to New York and go to Goldman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I always thought, like, if if when you're pre-30, I think you should uh gain experience in New York City for 2 years, DC for 2 years, and maybe San Francisco for 2 years if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
It's subjective, but yeah, it's something about New York, being from the South, you just flex a new muscle, that hustle mentality. You learn how to get up a little earlier, stay a little later. And I think that discipline was still ingrained in me dating back to my time in Maine. But I had to step it up a notch, just given how competitive uh, Goldman was, and then even those around me. Um, and that was also a very tough time, right? This was 2008, 2009, and um, stayed there, and then found my way to Boston at State Street Bank. And so this was just a critical time because at that moment, Otto, it was really about gaining a solid skill set, really beefing up my social Rolodex, getting some social capital. And third, unapologetically, you wanted to get some personal capital as well. You wanted to be able to have some financial freedom, and so collecting those bonus checks and trying to be smart with it. Where actually, honestly, I was not. But the truth was, that time in on Wall Street, I learned so much. Really, it's where I honed my investment chops, which really later uh, positioned me well today. And no regret. The goal was never to rise to the ranks and become managing director or partner.
Sure. Was it on the investments banking side of things, or
Oh, it was a mixture of operations
okay?
and on the sales and trading and sales and research across both firms. So I wasn't that guy who was coming out of the office at 2, 3 in the morning. I'm exaggerating. Sometimes that actually was the case, given that environment. I was actually getting in early and leaving at 6, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock after the bell. But yeah, it was more on the S&T and operations side across both shops.
From there, Nazir, what led to the VC, the venture capital startup world?
Yeah. So that opportunity actually, I always had an entrepreneurial bug. But coincidentally, what led to an interest in venture capital and even more specifically investing in early stage mission driven technology companies was friends and I we opened up a coffee shop in New York City, and we weren't your traditional coffee shop. We were a incubator where we attracted a lot of entrepreneurs, and organically, like most coffee shops, those entrepreneurs are meeting with investors. And as an owner, and as inquisitive and respectfully nosy as I am, I'm going around and I'm introducing myself, and I'm also meeting some investors. And so a few of those investors took me underneath their wing and introduced me to the broader private markets, more specifically venture capital, and even more specifically impact investing, because I was really interested in how do I combine my skill set with investing, with mission driven companies that are solving problems in areas that we interact with every day, like education and financial services and healthcare. And education was always the biggest interest for me. At that point, I was involved in several nonprofits on their board, playing as one foot in, one foot out. Still had this mindset: if I wanted to make a social impact in the community, I had to do either one or two things: either uh, work for the government, run for office, or work in a nonprofit. And so impact investing really expanded my lens as another opportunity to combine my love for investing, but also see a world where there can be some financial return based on the companies we invest in. And so that was the case. Did some angel investing. And then later we sold the coffee shop. I became a appointed official at the Connecticut State Department of Education, leading the state's digital learning and infrastructure strategy, and found myself recognizing early this is not where I want to be, but it was a unique experience working at the state level, but that investing experience, doing some angel investing during my time at the coffee shop was interesting, and so I started to explore business school. I started to explore possibly operations roles or joining a venture firm, and the latter came about, joining a venture firm.
Those early investments, Nazir, where were you sourcing through the coffee shop or as far as potential, investments?
Yeah, I mean, I would none of them came through the coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
I was I was solely learning from the entrepreneurs. I befriended a lot of investors at the institutional level. They share some deal flow. I was became a bit more involved on the local um, accelerator programs that were happening around the city, going to demo days, meeting with founders over coffee at my own coffee shop.
Hmm.
And so I knew if I knew deal flow sourcing was one of the first uh, differentiators of any fund manager, from my mentors who shared that with me, and so intentionally, that's where I was spending my time, and I would write very small checks to these companies that were starting companies on the napkin, and I just wanted to get some skin in the game, but also just wanted to support because I believed in them, and in many cases I had actually understood the problem they were solving. So that also gave me conviction.
That's great. And especially great experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that early, I mean, reps is so important. There's people who want to cut corners, and or want to constantly read things and essentially regurgitate what's in the market already, what's said already. But the best experience is reps on reps on reps on reps. As you think about sourcing and structuring deals and investment memos, we can get into that later, but yeah, those early reps, and then later, you fast forward today, is just now second nature when you think about building, investing in great companies.
The venture capital firm you went to work with, was that in New York City?
No, that's actually what got me down in DC.
Okay.
Um, Co-founders of Village Capital, very unique venture firm that is both a ESO, an entrepreneurs organization, but also a venture fund. And from out of the gate, I was global head of their education investments and practice. Really leading the strategy and sourcing and team building for early stage education to employment companies. And then the latter part of that time at Village Capital, had the opportunity to to lead their U.S. economic opportunity portfolio with a focus on education, fintech, and healthcare.
What made you decide at the end to sort of hang up your shingle and start Zeal on your own?
Well, that's a question that I get a lot, at even from my family, who knows you better than a lot of people, and of course your close friends, and now my partner, and there were a lot of hesitations for me, and I think people who look like you and I, and women, we tend to have imposter syndrome. I was very skeptical in going out on my own, um, but at the same time, I recognized my privilege. I recognized that I had amazing mentors who were my confidants. They were with me at my highest, and they were with me at my lowest, and they kept it real with me when I came to them and I said, I'm not that much excited where I am. I was working at a global company, focusing on direct investments at a TMT company, a technology and media and telecom company. And but also felt like I had a pretty decent track record in investing in companies. I'd invested in about 28 deals, four of which exited within less than 4 years from its initial investment. But two of my mentors, we had dinner, and both of them are iconic investors and operators, so I respect them dearly and their opinion. And they said, Nasir, you often talk about democratizing entrepreneurship, and you lean into particularly these under-resourced, under-allocated founders and ecosystems. You've built a solid track record. You're 34 at the time. You're 34 years old. You're a Black investor. There's only 1% of you out there. Why don't you go out and just start your own vehicle? And it wasn't my initial first inkling of like what I should do next, because again, I wasn't that happy where I was. And I essentially came back to them maybe a month later and said, you're right. Zealous is my favorite word, is everything I enjoy. I get excited about when I meet a founder or a teammate, to have that passion. And so I'm gonna ideate this project called Zeal. So we called it Project Zeal at first, and then Project Zeal became a venture firm officially in January 2020.
I love that. You just mentioned now, Nazir, how we're a minority as far as less than 1% as in the VC world. I've had Mac from Airbreed Ventures on the show up in Baltimore. I'm sure you probably know him.
Yeah, we're both Kaufman Fellows. Shout out to Kaufman
Uh,
Fellows. But Mac is my guy. I'm so excited for him, both personally as a new father and the work he's done in building Rare Breed into a emerging venture fund.
yeah. Why do you think, though, it looks like that in the industry as far as the minority, less than 1% in the VC world?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with systems. There's a lot of systems across the venture capital community, on the LP side, on the investor side, and it's such a relationship build business as well. And so you think about where venture capital goes in terms of ethnicity and gender and geographic. They come from very few places, back in the same people, and so in some cases it's hard for once you establish those relationships in those ecosystems, it's hard for people to be comfortable enough to expand their lens and think a bit more outside of the box, and in terms of recognizing that investable entrepreneurs exist everywhere, not just coming from very few places. And so, but in order for that to happen, there has to be systems level change in how we think about allocating capital, holding investors accountable to ensure that they're spreading their lens, a bit more wider than they historically have. It's also the importance of underwriting in more diverse fund managers who have, differentiated networks of entrepreneurs that your traditional, maybe white investors were missing out on. And so historically, African American, Latinx, women, LGBTQ plus fund managers and entrepreneurs, just did not have or most of us did not have the social capital to be in these circles, to be at these dinners, to be part of, household tech companies where some Black folk and, it's people of color and women in general could have invested in these household names, but weren't around in these ecosystems to be afforded the opportunity. And so there's access that has to change. There's opportunity in terms of education. So there's also the lack of education. There's how we think about university systems playing a role, kind of widen the lens where we're not just looking at Stanford or Harvard Business School or the Ivy League schools of the world, but we're looking at HBCUs and other universities that yield amazing talent. So there is there's hopefully that makes hopefully that is part of the issue. I think that is, but our goal here at Zeal is to democratize and truly execute this inclusive investing strategy that will push whether you're a story franchise or an emerging manager to rethink how you think about your team, which will yield you to over-index your allocation in more underrepresented entrepreneurs, gender, ethnicity, and geographically.
How was it that day, Nasir, when you opened the doors for the first time to Zeal and, raising that fund? Obviously, it was a success with the oversubscription. Maybe your marketing degree came in handy there. I don't know. But how was it starting off Zeal?
Well, first and foremost, although you just have to have conviction in your strategy. I think one of the things I did was just market map what was out there, right? What were the more notable sub $50 million funds in the market or sub $100 million funds in the market? Who are the top category, top funds that focus across our categories, top fintech funds, top education technology funds and workforce funds. And then once you gather, a lot of that data, where are the gaps and where can you play to differentiate yourself and attract the best entrepreneurs? And I was very clear on where we could find those entrepreneurs and how we can win those deals. I was even taking a step back, thinking about how do we build the right team. So I am fortunate to have an amazing, tireless team who has, strong domain operating and investment acumen across our three categories. Andy Will, who's been with me since day zero, Evelise Vargas, Jason Green, our EIR, amazing advisory board. And so just, I think, we've built a infrastructure. We are executing a differentiated strategy. And third, as these companies become portfolio companies, they have to have the best support system to, reach the next financing round, growth trajectory. And so making sure we're building the best support system as we think about post-investment value creation. And so all of that, thinking through going into market and then taking that concept to limited partners to invest in the fund. And then the hard part is actually executing it, which we are. That's how it looked. And the good news is that all of this is going to evolve over time, and I'm just very excited to just be in a great position to continue to build the best-in-class investment franchise in Washington, D.C., non-negotiable.
I love that. You just mentioned your team now, Nasir. How important is surrounding yourself with the right team members, the right partners, and how do you go about finding them in the first place?
Your team is core to your success. I think anyone will share that with you, whether you're building a company or you're building an investment platform. That is, you want to practice what you preach too. You want to make sure you're going out, looking at diverse talent, but also diversity of background and skill set. And so for me, I think one of the areas that I think I've done quite well in my career is have a pretty strong Rolodex. And if I don't know someone, I kind of get a sense of, act politely or use certain strategies to amplify and share that you're looking for XYZ talent. But I think relationship building, honestly, has been key. Two great examples. Andy Will, for example, who's our principal, I met him while he was still in business school, and he was working out also at a venture firm and in Chicago. And that conversation was only supposed to be a a 30-minute conversation, and I was just wild about his personal story. He's from Maryland, but met him in Chicago. Coincidentally, he wanted to get back to Maryland, the area. His wife was pregnant with their first child, but he had a love for the DMV. He had a love for venture capital. Yeah, he was very quanty. He's very quanty, so that balance where I can get a little quanty, but my thing is vision and execution and building the team, execute. And then on the other hand, you had someone like Jason Green, REIR, who I've known since 2015, 2014, when I was his best friend, and I worked in Connecticut together, and got in touch when he was at the Obama administration, and we just hit it off, and always wanted to work together, but never came together throughout the years. And you stay in touch, you share an opportunity, and you hope to get excited about it. So it's a great it's just a great, and I see that happening as we build out our team. I think we're going to always be small and mighty, but having that connection, those stories, and how we met and how we're working together is again, is core to our success, our team.
What would you say drives and motivates you?
Outcomes, both impact outcomes, the potential for financial outcomes. We're an early stage firm, and we're a newer firm. We're executing something that's super bold, and the ability to do it right. And there's going to be haters, or there's going to be people who's going to try to tear you down and say that you shouldn't be here, but you got to brush them off and continue to build the best support system around you, both personally and professionally. And so recognizing I have that around me, confidently, I can say that. And then, looking at our portfolio companies who are just crushing it in this fickle market, that alone is driving me to continue doing what we're doing every day.
Nazir, chatting with founders day to day, if someone were to come to you, and entrepreneur, they want a business, it doesn't matter what sector and industry, they want to start their own business, any advice or pointers you would tell that individual?
You're asking if they wanted to get capital or to start their own business?
No, just start their own business. And maybe you possibly down the road an investor, I don't know. But yeah, they starting their own business.
The first piece of advice, and none of this advice is new. I think it's all quite clear that it's important to do your homework on the market you're tackling. It's important to really understand who else is playing, understand the barriers to entry. Are they high? Are they fairly low? What's the total addressable market? How big can this company be relative to the current market in which you're operating? What's your secret sauce around your product? How can you get a consumer or a business enterprise to keep swiping their card? I'm just saying figuratively, to pay for your service. Ultimately, you want this flywheel effect where it scales globally as well. So, what is the technology that's embedded in the company that will allow it to scale globally? These are areas that indicators for us that yield it can be an investable company worth backing. It also depends what you're looking to build. I mean, some companies don't want to become a billion-dollar company. They don't need venture capital. They just, want to grow organically and break even when break even. So they're, and that's okay. Today they call that a bit of a zebra, I think they call it. You have unicorns, you have zebra, and zebras have no interest in becoming a billion-dollar company. So it's really exciting. It's it's really exciting to uh, to constantly talk to entrepreneurs and help them navigate their ideas. And especially here in the DMV area, I think we're seeing a number of amazing entrepreneurs. That is because for years we've just been overshadowed of this community being a government hotbed, and we're so much more than that.
What would you say you love the most about your role every day?
I just love building, honestly, Otto. I think it's been no day is the same, honestly. Communicating with our founders, our limited partners, building out the team. There's just a lot of that that is woven in every day. And again, no day is the same. I think, it's important to make sure you're healthy in this business. You got those that win, those who have stamina. I think that's one of the, yeah, something that is not, um, is not understood outside looking in. I think even the word venture capital and being in VC is a cool thing at the bar or at parties, and it is a long game, and you have to manage your risk too, right? Because this is a long game and it's really hard. It's the reason why you go to most VC websites, there's not a lot of us, versus you go to a Home Depot or a Goldman or a Crafts Food. There's these large companies, they have a lot of employees for a reason, because they have revenue coming in. But for venture capital firms, it's a reason why we're small, because we have a small management fee to take care of each other, and the goal is to bet that the companies will outperform, and that's where the real wealth comes in. So yeah, it's no days are the same, and very much just excited to do this day to day with our team.
How does your team at Zeal look like today?
So currently we're three small and mighty. We're actually about to expand, knock on wood, to seven. We have a fractional CFO. We have an EIR, executive in residence, who comes in and helps us with diligence. And he's a lawyer by trade, and so he helps us with some puts on his legal hat every now and then. And then, of course, post-investment value creation, he's been super supportive. And then you think about our platform team, which are functional experts across product sales and governance and talent. And then you have your advisory board, you have your investment committee, you have, of course, your LPAC, your limited partnership agreement committee. And so we have these different entities that speak to the broader bench infrastructure of Zeal.
Nasir, are there any specific habits or traits you feel that you've had that's helped you in business or on the personal side of things?
A discipline is really key to me. You can't execute a thing if you're not disciplined. And I think it's easier said than done, of course. I mean, you have to, do the research and then start to put it on paper and build the team. And so remaining disciplined has always been core to my success. I think also just remaining humble as well. And not foregoing integrity as well. I take a lot of pride in that. It's something I look at when I'm looking at sourcing founders and even bringing on team members as well. And so that is super important. Integrity, and high IQ, and being disciplined.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge with your role at Zeal today?
One, time. There's just not enough time in the day to do the things you got to do. You're just cranking away every meeting, every call, every write-up, and before you know it, you got to get home to your family, and you can't compromise that. You got to make time. And then like there's sometimes there's just so much resources, so many resources um, across the Zeal bench that sometimes it can just be a bit difficult to get to, and at such short amount of time when maybe a deal is competitive and you have to kind of make a call on the deal, and but you want to get some more clarity, and so you know it's whether people's schedules or there's just so many you can't get around everyone. So I've been thinking a lot about how do I control the bench where we can make sure we are capturing the breadth of our resources. Um, and then I'd say third is like we're currently in a bit of a challenging market, and it is it's crushing a lot of us. And so continue to be disciplined, continue to focus on what you promise your limited partners. I won't say this is difficult or challenge. It's just the market is just different the way it was let's say 2 years ago, when anyone out there was who wanted to start a company can get money from SoftBank or Tiger, or all these firms are now quiet now, and so it's been interesting to see that shift. But yeah, those are my, I say, biggest challenges.
Are you speaking about the market today? Are you, I guess, underwriting things differently now than you were, I don't know, 12, 24 months ago?
No, we believe this is when you invest. We made a strategic decision not to take our foot off the gas. I think probably the biggest shift we've made so far is to increase our reserves. When you're investing in, making initial investments, you want to build in a strategy that allows you to have enough reserves so these companies could stay alive and continue to thrive as they reach their next financing round. And so, companies are doing well in our portfolio. We just needed to increase our reserves from 50 to 55. And so that's where we're spending a lot of our time. It's not just new deals, but taking companies by their hand and really helping them think thoughtfully about managing their cash and making sure that they have enough to get them through over the next 12 to 18 months, which is critical in this market, because once you get up a little further up the capital stack, being Series A and beyond, it gets even tougher. And so how do we to raise capital, that is. Mm-hmm. So how do we prepare both our founders but also our friends who are Series A plus investors to prepare them to invest in our portfolio companies?
What do you know now, Nasir, that you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
I think the question really is like, what would I tell my 22, 23-year-old self? And probably don't take yourself too serious. Yeah, I used to take myself so serious. I was just focused. Like, I would go out to a day party. I remember in New York on a Saturday, and I got to get to the office. I have to read the book for Bazi. I have to. I didn't have to do that. I mean, I took myself too serious. I think I missed out on some good times, and I think some of that also kind of impacted me, back then, emotionally as well. I think mental health is so important to call out. And if you're not sane, you can, really, find yourself in a difficult position to be your full self. And, back then, again, I've been grateful enough to have some great friends and mentors that, got me right. But I just took myself too serious, and I'm if I was to tell my 22, 23-year-old self now is don't take yourself too serious.
Have a little bit more fun.
It's just a little bit more fun. It's fun.
Nasir, coming to an end here now, you just mentioned mentors. Are there any specific mentors that have impacted you throughout your career?
Oh my God, it's so many that all played a very specific role in my life. I would say Jeff Livingston, Fred Royal, Robert Refkin, who's currently at Compass, our next governor, Wes Moore of Maryland, and Vernon Jordan, God rest his soul. Um, and yeah, and a number of others I'm probably forgetting to share. Excuse me if you're seeing this. It's also we're recording this on a Friday, but afternoon. But yeah, it's been those are some powerful mentors that have really shaped my thinking.
What does the future look like for you and Zeal?
The future for us is to execute what we shared, to do that by maintaining high integrity, bringing in high IQ every day, ego aside, and becoming a top decile fund in every fund that we execute, and collecting impact metrics that are directly tied to systems level change across the financial services industry, the post-secondary higher education industry, workforce, and in healthcare as well. And if we do that, that is a powerful story in itself. And again, just very much privileged to be in a position to build a team and execute the strategy the best way possible.
Nasir, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to learn more about you and what you are doing at Zeal, where can they go to?
Yeah, just go to our website, zealvc.co. You can find us on social at zealvc. You can find me on social at Nasir Qadree on all social platforms. Send me an email, Nasir at zealvc.co. I'm very responsive to all of those things. And so I would love to hear from you, and I would love to share more.
Really appreciate you coming on and taking the time.
Thank you, Otto. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yep.